Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's bonus/extra/special episode of Attendance Bias. I am your host, Brian Weinstein. I am here today with Scott Marks of Phish.net and the Mockingbird Foundation to recap the last ridiculous week in the Phish world. Scott and I are about 24 hours out from the last night, the 1996 night of the run, and we just needed to get it all out. We had a lot to say. So the whole Phish in 5 run, we didn't know what to expect coming up. Well, maybe a little bit, but once it started, man, you get two guys who love Phish and we get a lot of talking going on. So whether you are on your way to Fenway Park to close out the tour, whether you did or did not go to Madison Square Garden, whether you are running on almost no sleep and all caffeine, I hope you enjoyed today's recap episode. For anybody who's new to Attendance Bias, recap episodes are not edited. I don't take any seconds, except for right now, to insert any music clips, any sound effects, really, and I don't cut out anything that was said and maybe should have been cut out. So you will hear a couple extra long blank spaces, a lot of ums, a lot of ahs, because man, when you have 5 shows in 7 nights with a billion thoughts every night, sometimes the brain gets twisted. But enough from me. Please enjoy this quick and dirty recap with myself and Scott Marks from Phish.net and the Mockingbird Foundation. You can follow him at Blue Sky as BizArchive, BIZARCHIVE. Enjoy our recap of the Phish in 5 shows in 7 nights week at Madison Square Garden. Scott, welcome back to Attendance Bias, to our Phish in 5 at MSG recap. How are you? At this moment, we are about 24 hours removed from set break of the last night of the 5-show run. Have you recovered? Are you awake? Are you alive? How are you coping with the flashback to the rest of the real world right now?
I am alive. That much I know. I had a 5-hour drive from New Jersey with a delightful delay for the George Washington Bridge. Made it back. Saw the new Spider-Man movie. I'll be going to bed an early hour tonight and trying to sleep as much as I can before I head out to Boston tomorrow. But got the majority of my driving done. I get to sleep in my own bed tonight, and just glowing from the last week. Like that's the word that just comes to mind, is glowing, beaming. I'm just so thankful and appreciative of what we had a chance to experience.
I feel the same way, and this will come up probably a little later, but after each night, so for anyone listening who has been on Mars for the last week, Phish has played 5 nights in a week from July 22nd to 29th, so 5 shows in 7 days at Madison Square Garden toward the very end of their summer tour. And I don't know if you knew this ahead of time. I was pretty sure about the theme, but I wasn't totally confident. Like, I wasn't ready to put money down on it, but I was thinking it would be about the 90s, but I didn't know how dedicated they would be to this setlist theme. But after each show, I would get home. It only takes me about 15 minutes to get home from using the train from Penn Station.
Must be nice.
It's the greatest. I mean, if you look at my stats, though, it's so lopsided.
I got in around 2:30 in the morning for the first several shows, and then narrowed it down to about 12:30, 1 o'clock. And I will just say that after seeing this band for close to 30 years, I am not built the same way I was back in the 90s. So
yeah, it's not 1993 anymore.
And caffeine's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, what I used to do before a show, I won't go into too much detail, but what I do now is I get a double espresso to get myself ready for a show. That's my drug of choice now.
So night 1, I was fine. I remember there are these memes for the Baker's Dozen where it shows like night 1 and night 13. And now it's like night 1 and night 5. It didn't matter. But night 1, I was fine. And by the time 3, 4, and 5 came around, I was getting a large iced coffee every night, and just that little boost. And apparently, I don't have a problem going to sleep having an iced coffee at 5, 6 o'clock at night because I was so freaking tired. And I joke that my drug of choice is an Advil. So I needed that at some point with my earplugs, and it does wonders on a sore back.
Oh yeah, I'll get to my sore back. I think that was night two. But what when I got home each night, I was so wired, and it had nothing to do with the caffeine before the show. I was so talkative and energetic. Like normally after a Fish show, when I get home, I'll just like have a Gatorade, and like you said, whether it's Advil or if I have a headache, Tylenol, and I'll just pass right out. Drink water, Gatorade, go to sleep. I had to mellow out after every show of this run. I was so excited it never wore off, it never got old. Is that how you were after the shows?
I mean, I had an hour and a half train ride, so I was pretty mellowed up by the time I got back to where I was going. But yeah, the excitement that these shows brought exceeded my wildest expectations going in. I didn't hit any of the shows leading up to MSG, but working with Fishnet with the set lists, either I was, doing the set list duty at home, or I was listening to shows later on, and if I was out, and so I knew everything that was going on in the tour. I knew the jams that were being expanded, and I, I was originally just going to do nights 4 and 5, and even then I was kind of like, I guess I'll go. It's if you're not from the city, it's kind of a pain in the ass to pull this off, and I've probably seen over 70 shows at MSG, at the very least, if not 80. I missed the stuff in the 90s, and I missed 2 shows from the Baker's Dozen. So well, day
And
off. Math's not really my strong suit this evening, but that's got to be at least in the 80s. And I, being in Rhode Island, I like to do Newport Folk Fest, and I had trouble getting tickets this year, and I just they announced they announced the shows with the tour announcement, and it was wonderfully done, where you have like this 3-minute video of all these 90s clips and whatnot. They're pop pieces of pop culture, and so I knew one of two things was going to happen, and this is kind of reinforced where they brought out the online version of the Doniak Schweiss like 2 weeks ago. You were either going to have a freaking genius marketing campaign, which built up all this hype for just 5 shows, or something was going to happen. And I decided, and I've gone back and forth. Like I missed the Saratoga shows last year because Newport Folk Fest just has such a great history with it of surprises and wonderful moments. And I felt like I had to swing the pendulum back this year. And so I decided a couple hours before the Schweiss went out, so maybe a week before the shows, that I was going to do all 5 and put the pieces together. And it, obviously, you got to night 1, and it's 1992. And you realize that pretty quickly after a couple of songs. And all of a sudden, you're having stuff busted out like cold as ice. Where I find it wonderful that you have the biggest bust out in Phish history. It's like 30 seconds long. Of like all the songs, it's like, yep, 30 seconds. There's the biggest bust out. But then there was the vibration of life. And all of a sudden, these are things that I've been fortunate that Fenway is going to be my 450th show. And I've seen pretty much everything I could want to see in 29 years of seeing Phish. And all of a sudden I had stuff that was kind of dangling in my never seen things, like Big Ball Jam, Johnny Be Good, Suspicious Minds, songs that I thought I would never, ever get a chance to see because they had just been shelved for almost 30 years. And all of a sudden these were popping out there. And it kind of had that Baker's does a mentality of like, you need to be at all these. And so circling back here finally, yeah, I was completely super energized walking out of the garden, and said multiple times to anybody who would listen and to even people that would not listen, over the last week, how lucky we are, to have this band doing what they did, and giving a damn. They didn't have to do this. You look at the shows from a couple of years ago when they did the seven shows at MSG. They were
Yeah.
good, but
2023, yeah.
there was no theme to it. And I just feel that they went above and beyond and made this such a memorable experience that we're doing this attendance bias literally the day after after the MSG shows, because we gotta get this done. It's so fresh on our minds and such a fantastic thing.
I think a lot of people feel the way that you do and the way I do because it's the same, but that there's just so many thoughts and so many angles to this thing. I also, in my mind, kind of compared it to the Baker's Dozen in kind of like in minuscule, like from a different angle in a way. It's smaller in scale and scope, of course, but it kind of had similar themes throughout. Like from that video that you mentioned, because Phish announced this tour on February 18th, all the way back then, but they set aside a special video. They didn't do tour announcements for years. So they released this specific video that you described. It's about 3 minutes long. And the message that I took from it is that they were just making a statement that Phish in New York City or at MSG is as just much a part of the culture of New York City as, I don't know, WPIX or rollerblading or getting a hot dog. It's stuff like that where I didn't automatically assume that there was going to be a theme other than this is the countdown to 100 shows at Madison Square Garden. This is just the number of shows. And it happens to coincide with our glory years in New York City at MSG, what we call 1.0, right? I didn't know or expect it to be 90s themed. Like my response, I was texting with a friend. I pulled up the text before you and I started speaking. I wrote, quote, I think they're past themes. The Baker's Dozen was a one-off in that regard. So it shows what I know, right? I'm not one for predictions, but it was so great. As it got closer, obviously, and they released the Deny X it became a little more obvious. Okay, it's really going to be the 90s when we get there.
See, for me, now it looks so obvious looking back on it, but
Yeah.
like I'm thinking, we'll get like a Smashing Pumpkins song on 92 night, or Pearl Jam on 93 or something, or like one or two songs, or they throw in covers that were from that era. But I never thought that they would literally do entire show of it. And look, I realize that there are a couple of nitpickers out there. So like the night they did the Curtain with, they should have done the Curtain, and Axla 2 was not played in 1996. I get it. But you look at, and obviously Numberline, but you look at the general picture, and um nobody's perfect when they put these things together. And I also feel that this is not like a spontaneous set list. Like there was a lot of effort put into this, whether they were going on to Fishnet or to David Steinberg's IHOZ site. I don't know, but like there was a lot of work put in here, and they're like, well, all right, what were we playing then? And then also, what did people want to hear? Like they didn't have to do LaGrange, but they did.
Or Highway to Hell.
Yeah, Highway to Hell for 95 night, and or even a Harpua for last night. And it's just a matter of really going above and beyond, and such a special moment in this band's history. And when you look back on it being, over 40 years, 42 years, just what the fact that they're still doing new things, innovative stuff, and releasing new songs. I mean, you could look at this being like a nostalgia act type thing for the last 5 nights, but I don't look at it like that, because again, these were things that they just stopped playing. And then also you went even a step further with the outfits that people were that Trey and Mike were wearing, and the mini drum kit, and the chess set.
And the theatricality, like getting
Yeah,
on their backs and doing the bicycle
right.
kicks during I
Yes,
Am Hydrogen, stuff like that, like the little
Mike's on
details.
trampolines.
Yeah.
There was so much effort put into this, and like you don't see that with other bands. It's not a knock on any other bands, but like just what the Bakers does in 13 shows, like Metallica's talking about during rehearsal one day, they can't believe that Fish did it. And it was Lars Ulrich. But and now that they did this for 5 shows as well. Like nobody's gonna be doing stuff like that. The big thing now seems to be that you're gonna have a band that's gonna go on tour for like the 20th and 30th anniversary of their album, and they'll play the album from start to finish, throw in a couple other songs or whatever, which is great. And that does bring nostalgia back, but this just brings it to like a whole different level where you're not repeating songs outside the Hold Your Head Up, and just pure magic.
Well, I want to touch on what you brought up because you brought up the word nostalgia, and I knew it was going to come up. It has come up in every conversation I've had over the past week. During the time machine gag on New Year's Eve 2022, Trey said, "I wish I had a time machine so we could do it all over again." He was granted a wish, and that was his kickoff to the whole gag. I wish we had a time machine so we could do it all over again. And these past 5 shows, they were like an opportunity the band created for themselves creatively to live out their hungriest, most creative years again, entirely on their own terms, in the sense where they're not reaching so much anymore. Like they're setting their own challenge as opposed to the whole world being in front of them. The whole world is now at their feet in terms of creative success, right? They've done it all. So now they have to create their own challenges. But how many people, forget bands, how many people in the world get the opportunity to look back, figure out what the good old days were, and then create a situation where they can relive them again? Now in Madison Square Garden, just putting little tweaks here and there to make it new again and to make it fresh for most of the audience, I would guess.
You also look at bands that were producing albums in the 90s. And you'd have an album in 91, and 92, 93, another one in 95, 96. And not having nearly the amount of covers that are played either. So like, you could look at Pearl Jam or Dave Matthews Band where they had albums coming out there, but did you have that amount of covers back then? I don't think so. And again, it's not a knock on other bands. It's just like I think a lot of times with jam bands, you're going to have, look at Humphreys McGee with all the covers they do as well, and Mo. There are certain bands that, in addition to doing all their originals, which they have tons of, you have the covers. And so, when you have a band that's doing like 100 shows, over 100 shows in 93, 94, you have such a large repertoire of songs to choose from to make this work. I don't see any other band that could really pull this off like Phish did.
Sure, and to challenge themselves that way, like you just said, and pull it off. That the Baker's dozen is they opened themselves to the entire world of music because they had to play 13 shows without repeating a song. In this case, they played 5 shows, right? Less than half of that, but they cut out 30 years of their repertoire. It's in 2004. Trey was 39 years old, right? He infamously said in his statement about the breakup that he didn't want the band to become a nostalgia act. But it turns out being something of a nostalgia act can be pretty fun. I looked up the etymology because I'm an English teacher, so I'm a big language nerd about this. Nostalgia is a portmanteau. It's 2 words put together to create one new word. So it's from the Greek nostros, which means homecoming, and algos, meaning pain. So we all know what nostalgia is, but it's bittersweet pain that you get when you realize you're coming home to somewhere that no longer exists as you remember it, or it's possible it never existed that way in the first place. And so that's what I felt going back and seeing it, this was all before me. My first show is 1997. So a lot
Same.
of this, right, existed in my mind's eye. I
We are
pictured
noobs.
stuff like Highway to Hell or them going on their backs and doing the bicycle kicks or like you said, the Mike Song trampolines. I read about that in Dean Budnick's Fish Compendium. I read
Sure.
about that on Andy Gadiel's website, and it always existed up here in my brain, in my mind's eye. And I just assume, or the Big Ball Jam in still photos, I just realized I was a little too young for that. I'll just never see it. And at 39, Trey might have felt, I mean, we all know he had a lot going on back then, to put it mildly, but maybe he saw repeating himself or indulging in their accomplishments already was kind of a surrender to being creative. But now he's 61. And I think they're taking a look back at their career in totality and wanting, in a way, to relive the times that made them realize why they're the best band in the land. And I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of in that. It's when you say nostalgia act, it can be done derisively, like, and I know you've been very delicate to say you're not knocking certain bands, but when I see the like Jones Beach lineup and it's Chicago with Toto and Journey, and it's I don't even know if there is one living member or original member in any of those bands.
Well, what I look at when I think Nostalgia Act is a band that, is touring around that has not released any new material in 10, 15, 20 years. You're playing all of your older stuff. You're playing what the crowd wants to hear. So like if I go to, a certain band, I know what I'm going to get. I know I'm going to get the hits. Um, and look, I mean, I'd love to see LaGrange back in the rotation. A Highway to Hell played more than like every 17 years. Um, you know, a lot of things I'd like. We don't always get what we want and we get what we need. But I just, you look at things and you never know what's going to really happen here. Take Isabella, for example. That was played in 98, shelved until 2017, and it's stuck around. It's not played every 5 or 6 shows, but you get it at least once or twice a year. So what's to say that you're not going to have Highway to Hell showing up every couple of years now? The door's been opened. It's just a matter of if they want to bring this back every so often. I mean, you could look at Cinnamon Girl, where that's been played, I think, twice. Baker's dozen, I feel like, one time after that. So, it's whatever they want to play or whatever they're remembering that they want to play. Um, and I think there will definitely be ramifications from these shows that will stick around. You look at the Beacon Jams, where you had stuff like the MoMA Dance, that I think had its like tab debut at that point and has stuck around in the tab repertoire. So you could see this as well, where they've put so much effort into these shows that you're going to have things that are going to stick around. Maybe not everything. I don't know if they're going to ever do the Big Ball Jam again, but
Right.
they're or if they do, maybe instructions are needed to not throw the ball back onto the stage. Um, you know, we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't be surprised at least if one or two of these monster bust outs sticks around for the time being.
It would be fun. I mean, it's ultimate wish fulfillment for the fans, at least for me. And I guess in some ways for the band, because this whole concept of time and time travel is not new, whether it's the Gamehenge Time Factory in 95, the Gem Truck set, the 2015 Hourglass New Year's, I just mentioned the 2022 New Year's Eve Time Machine. Like this run was another way of the band and the fans inventing a way to travel through time and appreciate it. The way I thought about it after the second show is that this was like the Marvel Universe multiverse. It created a timeline where Phish became a nostalgia act after 1996. Let's say like Billy Joel after River of Dreams, they said, we're not going to play any more music, but we're still going to tour. So in this universe, Phish has stopped making new music in 1996, but they've somehow still evolved sound-wise and creatively over the past 30 years. These are the shows that we got.
So um, there's a guy on Blue Sky, Limestone, who had pointed out last night, and I need to put a public post out. Let's give him credit. I got a direct message last night, but again, a lot of traveling. And as a younger guy who, his parents named him Limestone, so like, they're um, he comes from good roots as far as Phish goes and whatnot, and knows his stuff. And it's delightful to see the stats that he throws out there. But he had said, outside of a festival secret set, Phish just performed the jam at the '96 show longer than any jam they actually played in '96. And
Oh, wow.
so, you know, looking back on that, you have something where um, you have the '90s mentality of Phish, but you have the 2026 mentality of Phish as well, where you're mixing these old show set lists, if you will, with the jamming style of the 21st century. And so it definitely puts a different perspective on that. And seeing like really the worlds collide, or best of both worlds. And just an amazing time to be a fan of this band, seeing everything merge together like that.
For sure. And that's the way I looked at it. It's if you put on 2026 glasses on a 1.0 cassette tapes. And I know that that doesn't hold, but I'm also very tired. So
Yep.
just deal.
Yep.
But let's take a look at the shows. We'll just do a quick overview, our
Be-
thoughts on each one.
Before we do that,
Yeah, let's hear it.
Limestone's absolutely correct. The longest jam from '96 was the Rough Gin 11/7/96, which was 26:56. And so you had two jams last night. The You Enjoy Myself, or songs, if you will, because the jam is actually 36 minutes or whatever, but like I use it loosely. But like you had
Sure.
songs, the You Enjoy Myself and the Cross-Eyed and Painless were both over 30 minutes. So for 1996 year, you all of a sudden put it on steroids, and you had songs that were longer than anything the band played that entire year. It's an amazing jaw-dropping stat.
And that was kind of not predetermined, but you said that you were keeping very close track of the tour leading up to this MSG run. They've been playing ridiculous, like every show, it seems they're playing a 40-minute Carini or a 30-minute Tweezer, right? Like this has been a sign of this 2026 summer tour, extended long jams.
Yes and no. Like if you look back, I'd say to 2021 at least. You've had an overabundance of 20-minute jams, 2025 especially, where you had close to 40. Um, and the difference this year is you're having songs that never got jammed out before that are now showing on a 20-minute jam chart, like Life Saving Gun, Sightless Escape, The Wedge.
Bouncing around
Um,
the room.
yeah, that didn't reach 20 minutes, but if we're sticking with the
I'm just
long jams,
saying,
but
I'm just
yes,
saying
bouncing around,
proportionally.
well, and bouncing around the room did it twice.
Right.
So the fact that you were at Deer Creek and you got this, and then all of a sudden you got it on 92 night, and now it's like you're for a song that's been played around 500 times, and the last two are the only two that have been jammed out. And it's like bouncing around the room could be a jam vehicle, and it's just if you asked me this before the summer if that was going to happen, I was like, no chance in hell.
Yeah.
And I think the Baker's Dozen Jam Night was a good example of where anything could happen. Sample in a Jar, Lawn Boy. You go back to the '90s with Julius in 1997. 12/6 maybe, or 12/3, 12/5. One of the December shows where that got extended out. And the Buried Alive from Riverport in '98. So it's definitely happened on occasion, but not on a consistent nightly basis. And it was kind of like you're looking at everything going on, and you have shows that are 3 hours away, and like, well, I got vacation time. I can afford it. Now I need to do it. And drink lots of coffee.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those summers, and we still have 2 nights at Fenway, and then we have Dick's to finalize this. But it's just been one of the top tours in my opinion. It's not, I'm not one to sit there and rank things like this is better than that or whatever. But for me, Fall '97 is the peak of peaks for Phish. That's just my favorite run of shows. And this was not Fall '97, but it's apples and oranges, where you just have a band that's going above and beyond on a consistent basis every single night. Um, and and then you sit there and you look at it, it's like they've been doing this for over 40 years. And they're not doing the same stuff every night. They're not doing a same set list. And just it's mind blowing.
Well, I think that's the point. I think the point is that it's not Fall '97 because Fall '97 happened already. It's not August '93. It can't be. By definition, it cannot be, right? That's the nostalgic part of it. We're coming
Look, if
home.
you gave me another, if they tried to reenact Fall '97 for a tour, I don't care if they're a nostalgia act or not. I would go to all the shows, and I'm getting that funk every night.
I know. I
Just
loved it. My first show,
but
my first
yeah,
show was the New Year's run of '97,
yeah,
and it was like the funkiest thing. And that was
yeah.
when the guard was bouncing like really hard.
It still bounces.
No, I know, but like 360 degrees. But what I took from this week though is that it's like coming to terms with and understanding that for all the times that people have been saying on especially online discourse, or if you're in the parking lot having this conversation, they're a different band now, but it's the same band. It's over. Like we missed it when we talk about August '93. We could read about it, we could listen to it, and even if the band played an exact set list like Dark Star Orchestra style, it's still not going to be the same
No,
music. I think
um,
that's what I took away the most from this.
this is another one of the, like, if you look at those, not necessarily Mount Rushmore, but like a series of mountain peaks. August '93, December '97, fall 2021, which was another precursor to this year where you had stuff like NICU that got jammed out.
Mhm.
And Pebbles and Marbles as well. Just, but that was another one of those, like, you're watching all the set lists come in, like this case the next morning to the West Coast, and you know try and make it happen if you can. That worked out with the 4 night run in Vegas. But there are certain years and tours that stand out in boldface in your mind. And this is going to be one of those tours this year that will go down as one of the top tours in Phish history. Whether it's the best tour, that's, your mileage is going to vary. But for me, looking back on everything here, it's definitely one of the more memorable runs of shows, starting with Madison and finishing up in Boston tomorrow and Saturday at Dick's.
So let's give ourselves just maybe 3 or 4 sentences per show. Just a quick wrap up of what we thought. So the first night, July 22nd, which was 1992, I sat down. I went to all these shows except for one. I went to 4 out of 5 of them solo, like my own ticket, and just made friends with the people around me. So this night, I sat next to 2 great guys. Shout out to Andy and Dante, who own a good bar. I haven't been there yet, so I can't say from experience, but their website looks nice. Park Slope Ale House in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And we were just making conversation, and I asked, do you think that they're going to do a theme? Do you think all the songs are going to be from 1992? What are your almost like the same conversation you would have at a New Year's run based on the logo on the t-shirts or something, right? Like,
Sure.
what's the gag going to be? And he's like, I don't know. I would love it. It'd be great. Like, both of us were kind of hesitant, but we want to believe, like a little kid and Santa Claus. So
Little X-Files there.
yeah, yeah. So, but they open with Glide, which is my favorite song ever. It's a song that hooked me, and not for nothing, it's also the soundtrack of that video, the tour video. it's the song playing in the background. So
That's
I
right.
was going crazy. I was going nuts because it's my favorite song and they don't play it that often. Then when they played Runaway Jim, me and my neighbor Dante just like looked at each other. We wouldn't speak aloud, but we nodded. And then when they opened Foam, we both like, they're doing it. They're doing it. And the rest of that set, the cold as ice, exploded the whole building. Hold your head up. It was a return to normalcy, I guess we could say. The Jam in AC/DC Bag and Reba, and then once the vibration of life came around in set one, I was like, I can die happy. And I felt that a few ways after, especially after Gamehenge in 2023 on New Year's Eve. But the vibration of life, I've talked to so many people, guests on this podcast who talk about shows from the early 90s, and they talk about they didn't know what was going on with the vibration of life. And they just said Trey was talking and it was so small. We could hear every word. It was so much fun. I felt like I was part of a club now. And it just exploded something in me emotionally. And so after that first set, I was thrilled to have tickets for all five shows. There were more highlights, obviously, in the second set. The whole Mike's Groove, the extended bouncing, my friend, the jam vehicle of the last 2 years. But like I said, I only wanted to give myself three or four sentences. I think I've used up my quota. What was your first night like?
Um, it was. I came from a slightly different perspective. I was on the floor, and um, no bunch of people up there. It was maybe 5 or 6 rows back. And security was a little stricter than normal with a rope. They're trying to maximize the amount of people that can get on the floor. And you know, people will sit down and try and conserve space, and the security was just not having that. And it's like Mohegan Sun where you can't sit down as
Yeah.
well. And they finally let people sit down, but like the rope, like if you came in, you couldn't go to the back of the floor. You had to be stuck up there front. And they had, I found out later on, put people in the corner. So if you got number one for early entry, you couldn't go to the middle of the floor or the middle of the, in front of Trey. You got stuck in the corner. And so it kind of put me like at a mental disadvantage going into this, to the point where I had a bad taste in my mouth. And I mean, I did floor 2 more nights out of the run. It wasn't quite like it was the first night, but um, you know, I, I'm going to a show to have a good time. And to have that, not necessarily be in the right mental space going into a show, is sometimes harder to overcome. Um, and so, the show happens, and like you're noticing right off the bat, okay, Trey's sleeveless. That's uncommon.
Yeah,
And
that's a
so,
hint.
yep. So that was, something going back to earlier times, and I wasn't like looking up, what Trey was wearing in 1992. Other people did that for me later on. And so like I had posted, by the time Axlo was happening, that all the songs were from 1992 era Phish, and to see if that trend stuck around for the whole night. And obviously it did, and then some. To have Cold as Ice pop up, where again you could have just done to hold your head up on both sides of a song, and they actually took the time to really dig back there into the memory banks. Was such a cool experience. And to see the trampolines brought back out for Mike's song, to see the bicycle kicks, whatever what you want to call, where on their backs for "I Am Hydrogen," um, was wonderful. And I mean, even Big Black Furry Creature from Mars, which I knew they had done stuff in the '90s, and I thought that was like a '90s thing, and all of a sudden I'm going through a deep dive, and it's like Camden 2010. I'm like, well, all right, well they're doing crap for that. So while that wasn't necessarily a '90s oriented thing, it was still more antics on stage. And you had the bouncing, you had the my friend, and that second set. And Trey Kerr has done a wonderful job picking songs to use for the live fish or the YouTube fish videos. And to have a highlight of my show showing up for everyone else to see like the next day or the day after is wonderful. And he's, the quality of these videos is fantastic. And so I wanted to give him a little shout out for that. Um, and walked out of that night thinking, holy cow, they've done this. What's going to happen for the next 4 nights? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're looking at, the sky is the limit. Well, are they going to do Leprechaun, which they did not?
I was pulling for Leprechaun.
Charlie Dirkson's a dear friend of mine. Also on the board directors for the Mockingbird Foundation, which we'll get into a little bit later on. And always jokes about like Brother and and Leprechaun. He's seen Brother. Leprechaun, I don't think he has, but was always trying to get it to come back. And he made a last minute decision to hit the 93 show because I texted him during the 92 show. I'm like, yeah, I'll enjoy the Leprechaun for you. So then all of a sudden you snap your fingers and he's there for 93 night. And obviously we know Leprechaun has been shelved and it appears to be staying shelved along with All Things Reconsidered. But like you could sit there and just make a list of all the songs you could think of from those years and then just see them drop by the wayside night after night after night.
And that's the fun part. That's the challenge for the band.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it wasn't long before people started releasing these like matrices of what was the most common song played in 1993, and then what have they already played in night one. So like, and then those matrices just kept getting updated over and over again until people were just shouting out whatever.
I still couldn't get a pick 5 for 96 night. You figure after 4 nights of all these songs played, and I could sit there doing hours of research or minutes of research or whatever and think, oh, I know what they're going to play, and still fall flat on my face. I think I had picked for 96 Cars, Trucks, Buses, and Poor Heart, because I'm sitting there looking at David's stats and like, well, all right, this song was played 20 times in 1996. They're going to do this. Nope. So you think you know it. You know what they're going to play, and you are absolutely incorrect. And the fact that they're predictable, but they're not super predictable. Like even a blind squirrel is going to find a nut every once in a while. So like again, the You Enjoy Myself was pretty much a given, but in the end, what really is a given? What? Nothing.
Well, I'm going to give a small humble brag that I got the pick 5 on 1996, and I even put in a bonus for narration. So I'm not bragging. It's a humble brag.
I also don't do pick 5s very often.
Neither do I. I just thought it was fun for this.
I did it for Forest Hills last year, where I just chose Tweezer 5 times and got it. Just to kind of make fun of the whole pick 5 thing, because I never get it right. And I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm just going to choose this one song, and then got it. I was like, all right, I figured this out. And then I really didn't. That night, though, I was on top of the pick 5 universe, because I hit all my pick 5s because I just chose one song and I got it.
Nailed it. Yeah, that's more impressive than. That's why I have a humble brag. You have a real brag on that one.
I don't know about that.
Well, the next night, the 24th, so we had Thursday off. So we're back on Friday for 1993. To me, overall, I thought this was the most relaxed run for me personally, not for the audience. I thought the audience was more revved up than ever because we had a day to digest, unlike the Baker's Dozen, where it was always 2 shows in a row. And there were never 2 off nights in a row, if my memory serves correct, in the Baker's Dozen. So we didn't have that much time to really decompress. This show show, except for Friday, Saturday. But like, it just seemed like this was a little bit more relaxed. But this night, the set list from Friday night, it certainly adhered to the theme very well, and it was all favorites, right? Opening with Llama, and then a really good bathtub gin, classic lengthwise maze. Daniel Saw the Stone was very big in my section. People were thrilled. I was thrilled with Way. But and the Big Ball Jam, I thought that was the joke. That's what made it, because they obviously couldn't do the traditional Big Ball Jam, right? Where the goal is for each band member to attach themselves to one of the three balls in the audience and play according to how long it's being held by the band or being bopped around. There were like three, I mean, they were huge, but they weren't as big, but three big balloons, and they didn't really hold it together. It was kind of an acknowledgement, right? We don't do this anymore. We don't need this anymore, but we're going to do it anyway. And that's the
I'm gonna
fishiness of it.
I'm gonna sit here and take a pot shot at the community.
Go for it.
Um, so this is my chance for a little bit of payback. And I say this in good humor and good taste to whoever is listening here. Um, so there were people that were saying there was no big ball jam, that didn't happen. And then people were agreeing on this, despite the fact that Trey said big ball jam, which
Yeah.
at that point is like, okay. And so the Live Phish app and the Phish account had Big Ball Jam on there. And there are people are like, well, you guys at Fishnet shouldn't have this on there. But like Party Time was in there, even though, now I'm really, taking the rock back and we're looking under, see what's going on at this point, opening a can of worms. Like where Party Time was listed by Live Phish, it needs to be on there, even though it was only cool and there was no music. Well, if the band has it, it has to be there. But the band has Big Ball Jam, and you should have it on your site. So it is such a futile thing to sit there and argue with people. And I learned that a long time ago. You just kind of gotta brush things off, maybe throw a that's like your opinion, man. Give
Right.
her something from the Big Lebowski. And so like it's like, hey man, you could make your own set list to decide if Shafty was played here or if Party Time was played here or whatever. And so it's just Big Ball Jam was there. And so I'm watching this go on, and Trey has he quoted Big Balls from AC/DC at the end of that little, it was technically two, but it was only like a combined like 3 minutes. So that was something we didn't need to go back for 90s tube to have it like a 3 minute tube when tube's been jammed out so much. And so like, we could have, beggars can't be choosers. So anyway, I digress. So I'm watching this and the three balls are being bounced around, and I would hear, I'm standing there, I'm listening, like, all right, that note lined up with that ball being hit. So it happened. But if you try and compare that to the big ball jams from the 90s, no, it's not even close. And then, you didn't have Brad Sands on the stage at that point to help make a hoop, but you had Trey and you had two stagehands, whatever, and they made a giant hoop, and fortunately a ball got into the hoop. The crowd figured out, all right, this is what we need to do. And they got it done. And so there were enough elements there, in addition to Trey saying big ball jam, that like this had to go in. And so,
But that's back to
happens.
my point, though.
Yeah.
That's back to my point. This is the Big Ball Jam in 2026.
Right.
60-year-old plus members of Phish doing the Big Ball Jam. For what it's worth, Fishman didn't do his super ridiculous fast drum beat that
Right.
I have no idea how he did it back in 1993, but I don't know
one note at a time.
Yeah, but his, there
You're
are
all
only
that
three
goes.
balls. His drum beat is so ridiculously fast. It's like a bluegrass drum beat that never stops. And I don't know his physicality these days, but I would be shocked if he could hold that for as long as they would do the Big Ball Jam when he's as old as he is. Like, that's hard. So this is the 60 plus year-old version of the Big Ball Jam. It's 1993 through the lens of 2026
I'm not
Phish.
sure I'd put anything past John Fishman.
No, I'm not.
He's a
I'm not shitting
machine.
on him. I just don't
No,
know.
and I know you're not shitting on him, but I'm just saying that, like, and there have definitely been moments like for Foam and for a Fly Famous Mockingbird,
Yeah.
where Trey has played them a little slower. And like I, I think it's harder to get those guitar riffs down 40 years in, versus somebody playing drums where you just hit everything fast. So who really knows like what they are capable of and what they're not capable of? I'd rather have it slowed down a little bit and played cleanly than trying to rush through it, or try and play it at maybe a normal tempo and not quite hitting all the notes and having it not necessarily be a train crash, but somewhere in between. So it's to be expected. You look at it, Dead and Company, where they were playing songs a lot slower than Grateful Dead did, 30 years earlier. But yeah, maybe Phish could hit all the notes. I would think he could. But I don't know.
But my point is it's still a Big Ball Jam, even though it doesn't sound like it used to.
Yeah. So to everyone who said there's no Big Ball Jam, we have decided this attendance bias.
Yes, right.
Just in case Trey did not make it clear, there was a Big Ball Jam.
And for me personally, the big highlight, the big theme that ran through the 1993 night was the covers that made it for me. Like,
oh my God, yes.
Daniel Saw the Stone, had a big reaction.
Sparks.
Yes, yeah, that's where I hurt my back.
Oh my God.
That's when I needed my Advil, because I was jumping up and down in Tivas, and it's not 1993 anymore. I felt a little pop on my lower back, and I said, I'll worry about that later.
I was wearing Tivas in 1993. I've gone to Birkenstocks now, and I also just know better than to wear those to a show. No offense, Brian.
No, I just don't.
One of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to have no foot support, or someone's going to step on my feet. Or both.
Yeah.
So I just wear shoes. But yeah, I was wearing sandals back in the day. I get it.
Sparks just blows me away. Everyone who listens to this show knows I'm a big fan of The Who. And I saw the last time they played Sparks in 2016 at MSG, and I never thought that would happen. And that was not a themed show. So when that came out of that Chalk Dust Torture Jam, I was looking to my left, to my right. I was hugging, random hugs. I was jumping up and down, and the little pop in my back. I'd worry about it tomorrow.
You could hear that coming on as well for like a good minute out of the Chalk Dust.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised that 2001 showed up so quickly after Syracuse.
But it's so emblematic of 1993 as the second set opener.
It made sense, but I wasn't necessarily thinking that they were going to have that appear on such short notice. But was pleasantly surprised. And with the 2001s from 93, they were maybe 3-4 minutes long. This is about 12 minutes long.
Yeah.
So again, you had the 2026 version where they got a chance to jam it out a little bit. So again, best of both worlds once again.
And a killer Good Times, Bad Times to close the second set. And then an encore of Sweet Adeline, of course, Fluffhead too. But all these songs, all these covers that, and we mentioned LaGrange earlier, that you may never have thought you would see, this wish fulfillment again, and another, time travel for the band. That's what blew me away. Even though this show, I don't rank, I'm not ranking these shows, but this one might not be the first that comes to mind when I think about these five, the set of 5 shows. That's my only comment. What I mean by that. The next night, the Saturday night, the 25th, 1994, was something else. Night. It was weird. Yeah, it was weird. The opening of Back in the USSR, I think a lot of people predicted it. But what caught my attention was the extra jam in the beginning of Punch You in the Eye. Really was great. And of course, the PA and everything else being knocked out during Wolfman's. Where were you sitting? Do you remember how you kind of took that in? Did you realize what was going on?
No. So I was a row back, if you will, from the back of the floor, which is now half the size of what it used to be.
Right.
And it almost looked like it was scripted. Like you had um the Wolfman's ended on like a note, and then everything stopped. And I thought, well, it was like one of the old stop start jams. Like they've stopped it, and I was waiting for it to start again. Trey's looking at Mike, and Fishman's playing a couple of things on the drums with no amplification, and then realized quickly, all right, that's it. And so I had people that were reaching out to me that were watching the webcast because the sound just cut out. I'm like, what's going on? And so the FOH front of house just stopped working. And I feel that when something happens like this, it often affects the show. Like you have the delayed starts for some of these outdoor shows with rain where it all of a sudden becomes one long set. And I feel that the set list sometimes gets affected. You look at the second set of Syracuse where they had no encore, and all of a sudden it feels like they were throwing songs fast to get them through. Santos more. And not really knowing, all right, I'm going to have 75 or 80 minutes to jam out things. It's like, all right, now I'm kind of on a time crunch, a curfew or whatever. I have to get that done. And so you had I think like a 51-minute first set.
Yeah.
It was done. And like, what's going to happen in the second set? And what ended up happening was you had a longer second set, as you would have hoped for, 101 minutes. And you had what you really would have hoped for from a 1994 show with the Tweezer Fest. And I'd have to sit there and go look through the set list file. Pretty sure this is the first time you had 6 tweezers show up in the set list. And so it was, again, a Tweezer Fest to top all Tweezer Fests.
And topping the Bomb Factory, even, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it was definitely.
I don't mean to put you on the
my
spot.
internet connection is unstable here, so I might have missed something. So I apologize.
Oh, no, it's all right.
Well, technical difficulties there. You said, in your opinion, I missed out was being said before. So
it's all right.
Repeat the question, please.
I was asking, topping the Bomb Factory, in your opinion? Question mark.
Yeah, I definitely missed that. I feel like it was different then. That was a Tweezer Fest, but it wasn't going back and forth several times into Tweezer. I feel like that was the first time they really had a chance to do that. And again, I feel like the Bomb Factory is on hallowed ground.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that anything's going to top that, just because it was the Bomb Factory show, and Cannonball Jam in there, and just just so many things. The uniqueness and the spontaneity, if you will, which, again, who knows what was planned and what wasn't planned, but just something that was not something that the band was doing. I'm looking at that show, and
well, I know in his
you had
journal
Tweezer,
mm-hmm.
and then it closed with Tweezer Reprise. So you didn't. What exactly is a Tweezer Fest? I would always think of a Tweezer Fest as something where you're going back and forth on the Tweezer, but that didn't happen that night. You had a wild second set, also Sparks, but I don't think there were. I'm looking at the live Phish set list here, like it didn't go back into Tweezer at all. So it is different from, I think, what you would call a Tweezer Fest now, where it goes back and forth multiple times.
Well, this Saturday night one, the 1994, it certainly was what we've come to expect as a, in quotes, Tweezer Fest. But before that even happened, they opened with Highway to Hell, which blew everybody away, at least everybody that I could see. I got the sense that they were going to close the first set with Highway to Hell because Wolfman's Brother was just getting cooking
Yeah.
when the sound went out. So they opened the second set with it with a very quiet set break, by the way. It was a little unsettling because there was no music playing
Yeah, it took a
during
while. It
set
took a
break.
while for them to get the music back up, and then when it did, um, and like I had been lucky to catch two Highway to Hells in 2009. I caught it at Bonnaroo. I think it's Spec, and one of my dear friends, Scott Bernstein. We had been talking about 94 night. It's like, well, maybe you finally get your Highway to Hell. And he's like, maybe it's a Big Ball Jam. So after the dust cleared, it was Big Ball Jam, and he finally got his Highway to Hell, which again he had been wanting to see since his first show in 1994, and just was immediately texted him, and it was such a wonderful thing to have one of your dear friends getting a song that he's been chasing for forever.
I agree.
And you had that with so many people chasing so many things, and there was really something for everybody, unless you were someone who's seen like 7,800 shows, and then like, well, you've seen everything at that point. But for most people in that room, they got at least one or two songs, I would think, that they could cross off their never before seen list.
For sure. And this thing with 1994, before we move on to 95, when I'm looking at the second set, it's mostly Tweezer interspersed with different songs off Hoist. Not exactly, but Sample in a Jar, Down with Disease,
And a
Julius.
cavern to possibly top all caverns.
Yeah, that was a good
was
one at the
great.
end.
Yeah.
And
I
a
really
Purple
enjoyed
Rain.
that.
A Purple Rain for everyone who's never seen it. I mean, this is
Interestingly enough, that was the second Purple Rain to appear on July 25th. So 7/25/99, where Fishman forgot the lyrics to the song. They'd also, at least he got the lyrics this time. But yeah, just we've had two Prince covers this summer. Seeing Cream get
right.
brought back was a pure delight. It's kind of one of those things where you saw it in New Year's last year and thinking, man, I hope this isn't a one and done. Which happens with a lot of these songs that come out there. And it was not the case in this situation. Oh, also 93 they did a Purple Rain 7/25/93. So that's a stat for you guys. They've done Purple Rain 3 times on July 25th. So to see that, to have Phish play great, and then to have Trey playing guitar on it, like that's
Right.
something that I didn't necessarily catch immediately, but was pointed out to me afterwards. And then I did a look at the sample size, from some of the past Purple Rains. It was absolutely correct that like this is not something Trey's played guitar on before. And that made it even more memorable. And he's wearing the special guitar strap for the encore. And even stuff that was brought back for a given year in 1994 with Purple Rain, if you will. There was something extra. It's 1995 for Purple Rain. No, that was 94. Sorry. It's been a long day, guys. I apologize. My brain's falling apart here. So please forgive me. I'm not quite on my stats game as much as I'd like to be. But to have Purple Rain showing up there and to have it being similar, but being unique with the guitar, added something even for people that might have seen it before, that there's something new despite it being something old.
Exactly. And that's kind of what this whole run is about. Again, I'm going to keep saying that because I don't know, that's just been in my brain in a billion different phrases. It's old through a new lens. And I loved it because Trey's guitar tone also sounded beautiful. More Trey playing Prince.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
We've now had 3, 1999, obviously. He's teased Raspberry Beret in the past, I think in 92. Love to see that covered. But yeah, the more Prince songs we get, at Phish shows, the better. It's just such a treat getting those and having his memory live on.
Yeah. So we're off Sunday. We're back on Monday for 1995. To me, 1995 Phish was my favorite when I was first getting into the band. I thought that Fishman's snare drum sounded incredible on every recording that I had. The fact that they covered Quadrophenia blew my mind because I was the biggest Who fan before I was the biggest Phish fan. And just to have those two things smushed together like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it's like, all right, I guess I'm in for this now for the rest of my life. So for my pick five, Drowned was the obvious choice. I wish that they would play a different Quadrophenia song, but I figured for a challenge like this, they're going to go with what they know. They're going to fall back on what they've done.
I would have been happy to get a Sea and Sand, which they've done on occasion. But
or Real Me.
Drowned. Now we're really pushing it, but yeah, you get to Real Me after the Real Gin,
right?
From 1995. That'd be amazing. This one they kind of had their cards laid on the table as you walked in. You had the chess set behind Page's keyboard.
Right.
You had the mini drum kit, which was there for 95 and 96. And one other piece here that I want to throw out is that maybe it's given, maybe it's not, but they also made sure to play music before and after the shows tied into those years. So you had Friday Afternoon in the Universe by Medeski Martin Wood leading into the start of the 95 show. And If You're Feeling Sinister by Bell and Sebastian in 96. And so there are definite efforts to put the music from those years in, interspersed, before the shows, after the shows, but set break. And this show, you had Trey on his drum kit for 5 different times. And what I noticed with this was it really changed the perspective of the band and the direction of what was going on, because all of a sudden you have the other 3 guys taking a much more center stage, and Trey just taking a step back and playing rhythms and doing whatever he wanted to do on the drum kit, as enhancing what Phish was doing on drums. And you had some of the best improvisational moments of the run, like Drowned, the You Enjoy Myself, the next from night 5, to Cross-Eyed and Painless, Timber from night 4. These were just, they took something where it could have derailed the set list or derailed the song and enhanced it so much that these were real treats to experience live. And also there's replay value. Somebody had posted on Blue Sky after night 1. And look, we're all entitled to our opinions, but that there was no real replay value. It's like, if I want to listen to a 92 show, I'm going to listen to a 92 show. And again, there was the balancing that got jammed out. But you're looking at these shows for night 94, night 95, and you have these super long jams and there's definitely replay value, and the Tweezer Fest from night 3 as well. This was not like paint by numbers Phish musicianship at that point, as far as them playing songs. They went out of the normal realm, if you will, and just made these things where, you're going to want to go back and listen to a lot of this, whether it's the bust outs, which may not have the same replay value if you weren't there, because it's like, well, okay, it's cool, but I didn't actually experience it live, or actually seeing something that a 36-minute yem that's gone in so many directions, where I'd said that the MSG meet the MSG yem, because it was just like, this is the You Enjoy Myself for that venue, Riverport Gin, if you will. Right. MSG yem. There are certain times where you're going to have a song played multiple times in the venue, and it's going to be the one you think of. And Yem's been played at MSG tons of times over the last 30 odd years. And I would say that was probably the best Yem that they played there.
Yeah, and to your point, for this night, for the 95 night where Trey had his percussion set up, my understanding is that in 95 and 96, when they did have his percussion set up originally, the purpose of it, the practical purpose of it, was to have a less guitar driven sound and to have other members of the band kind of get front and center so they could kind of expand and not lean on Trey to do what people call Machine Gun Trey guitar solos and pigeonhole their sound. But now we're here 31 years later, approximately. And Mike Gordon has fronted the Mike Gordon Band. Page has fronted his own projects and his own bands. And they've been playing for that many more years. Back then, maybe those other musicians didn't have all the tools that they have now to lead a band when the lead guitarist, who does dominate the sound then and now, when he steps back and he's not playing his usual instrument, now they can lead the band and it leads them to really cool places. I don't remember the last time I said, wow, that Halley's Comet had a great jam, or that Prince Caspian really killed it. I've said that about Drowned, and I think that was the best jam of this evening. But those other songs that could be typical, Prince Caspian, It's Ice, Halley's Comet, Timber Ho, they killed it. This night was, I think, up to this point, at least, not inclusive of 96, my favorite jamming of the whole run.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. I really love the bouncing jam from night one. I felt that they kind of had a chance to expand on it more than Deer Creek version. It's like you took something that was great and made it even greater. But just everything fell into the right place for night four with the mini drum kit for percussion and whatnot. And it just made it again a show that kind of stood out over the first three shows, just in terms of the improvisational factor.
So let's bring it all home for night 5. This is July 29th, 2026, 1996, in our newly created multiverse of Phish, where
The alternate timeline.
The alternate timeline. We are, I think I can speak for you that we are not yet even recovered or processed. Like, this is right now 24 hours from set break of this show. I was there last night with a coworker who's become a friend. He's much younger than me. He's 27, I think. And I was taking him to his first Phish show. He doesn't know much about Phish. His only thing he knows is stuff that I've yammered about at work. And when these shows were announced in February, he said, I want to go to a show with you. I want to see what you're always talking about. I'm just curious. And I'm like, yes, come on.
Remember back in the 90s when you had to chase a harpua?
Yeah.
And that's like this guy gets it his first show. I saw our first shows in 97.
I mean,
I had to wait till Burgettstown 2003 and was screaming like a little girl. I was so excited for this. And I'm like,
I had to wait until the Baker's Dozen. I had to wait until the Baker's Dozen, and then it was two guys on stage reading a newspaper. But this guy, my friend who came, he had a great open mind. He wanted to like it, which is, I think, the number one prerequisite for enjoying a show. You want to like it. This show has everything.
Oh my God,
if he continues to go see Phish, I imagine he'll spend the rest of his show-going career chasing this. It's got, and I'm just reading it back for the first time, not every song, but it's got a cappella, it's got Gamehenge songs, it's got a new version of Axela that was already played with new lyrics. It's got Trey on acoustic. It's got a Jimi Hendrix cover. It's got Forbin's Mockingbird and to a Harpua. It has a 30-minute You Enjoy Myself. It's got a ballad in Waste. It's got a Fishman song. one that he hasn't played in God knows, since '96.
Oh.
It's got another 30-minute Talking Heads cover, and then a Beatles cover, and then it has the punctuation mark. He was unaware of it, but I got the message. It's like we just spent. This reminded me in 2013 of the Jemp Truck set, where on New Year's Eve they played a whole set of what some people at the time considered to be, and I don't agree with this, but they called it as close to a Gamehenge set as you'll get. But then they closed it with Show of Life on purpose. We're looking back at the life we lived. This is a similar message. This is a top tier show of any era because of the context in which it was played, and in addition to what itself was played. Unbelievable.
So I will make a confession here. Apologies to Steve Pollock and Trey. I was not originally a Show of Life fan. And I caught it on my 200th show at the Gorge in 2013. My first time at the Gorge, my only time at the Gorge. And it was an encore that night, I believe. And I stood there, and I'm listening to the lyrics. And like the light went on and it clicked and it made sense. And I'm like, and now I've had a deep, profound appreciation for that song when it's happened. And sometimes, you don't see the forest for the trees. And just I appreciate it very much. And so yeah, like the Show of Life. And people, will grumble about Numberline. And then think more often than not, the grumblers are still enjoying it once it starts after they realize they're having
always.
it. And the encore came around last night, and I realized that we're putting the cart before the horse here, going into the encore, and then we'll circle back.
Yeah.
Thinking, man, A Day in the Life is just a perfect way to finish off this run. It's, quintessential 90s Phish cover. They should just end it here. And then they do Numberline. And it's like, oh man, just somebody was doing their homework with lyrics and whatnot and just making it work. And like when you had the Lawn Boy reprise, if you will, at the end of Baker's Dozen, whatever, they know what's going on. And to have Numberline show up like that, whether you love the song or you don't, you got to appreciate the profound song selection there. And it's like it just tied everything together and was wonderful.
I agree. It was a perfect choice. I would just have to say that this show so again, I was there with my coworker / friend. We're both teachers. And when you're trying to get a job in, I don't know if this is true everywhere in the nation, but at least in our corner of it in New York, you have to do a demo lesson. You have to, it's like a job interview, except you're actually teaching a lesson in front of students and a bunch of interviewers sitting in the back of the room watching you do it. And the whole thing with a demo lesson is you want to show what you can do. You want to show that you are good with the students, and you want to show that you could teach a skill or a concept or a topic. And you want to give it everything you've got, just like any job interview. And to me, this is Phish's best demo lesson. They showed the best of what they can be in 2026, whether even ironically that it's taken from 1996, even though it might be a little earlier, I would argue a big portion of the set list. They showed everything they could do. Like, this is a quintessential Phish show. And I don't know the last time I saw a show that I could describe that way, even though there are shows that I've seen recently that I would love to just jabber on about. It's got everything.
It really did.
And so I don't want to go into all the details because we're taking up a lot of time already, but that's what I want to say about it, that it's got everything you could ask for in a Phish show.
Acapella, acoustic, covers, bust out, jams, and really I couldn't agree more that it really did have everything. And a narration on top of that.
This one's gonna hang around on my mind.
What a run of shows.
Yeah,
Um,
it's gonna live in my mind for a long time. I'm glad I immediately wanted to go to all five, and I'm not going to be at Fenway, but I'll keep an eye on it for sure. And let me ask you one last question to tie it all up. Prediction, and I'm bad at predictions. I always get them wrong, except for my pick five. Do
oh,
you, 96. Do you think with the Rangers having a home game on December 29th, what's your prediction for the New Year's run?
I would say that they're going to do. You said it's on the 29th, correct?
Yeah, the home game on the 29th, the Rangers.
I would not be surprised if they do something like the 27th, the 28th, the 30th, and the 31st, and uh you get show 100 on New Year's Eve. That would be my guess. If they, it just seems like it's a natural thing that they're going to want to do is to have New Year's Eve on that night. Um, Whether they end up doing that or not, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be one of those inverted runs where you're going to have 30th, 31st, first and second. 'Cause show 100 on January 2nd just doesn't have any real meaning to it.
Yeah, it
So,
doesn't have that panache.
well, my guess is that you're going to have it split up. Um, I don't think you could turn over. Well, I assume first of all the Rangers game is a night game on the 29th, so it's not like you could even turn over the venue. So like you've had things at the Garden, for Celtics or whatever, Boston Garden or even Bank North Garden, where you had like a basketball game and a hockey game on the same day. It's definitely
Right.
happened. But I yeah, I mean this is a midweek Rangers game. So that has to be a night game, a Tuesday night. So I don't even see that happening. I would think that that they'll span out over um 5 nights, or to make a guess.
I think the same. But to wrap it all up, I think we've done a lot. I think you and I are both running out of mental energy. So I think it's time for bed pretty soon. But before we get out of here, Scott, you mentioned much earlier the Mockingbird Foundation. I thank the Mockingbird Foundation in every single one of my episodes. Just for anyone who might be new to the band, can you explain what the Mockingbird Foundation is and how you help schools and music departments all over the country?
So the Mockingbird Foundation is a nonprofit organization run by fans of the band that has been around for 30 years. And we've raised over $2.5 million. I don't have the exact figure there, at the very least, for money for education for kids. So we will have schools that will apply for grants, and we'll award them grants, tour grants, if you will, for each town Phish is playing in. And there are also certain situations where we will give money as well, like if like the band room burns down or something in a school, or some tragic event happens in the community. We will give money for that as well. The band has matched us to the Christy Manning Foundation, and I hope I'm getting the words right there. Wonder Wheel has also been a huge supporter of Mockingbird, so a hat tip to them as well. And you look at schools where the arts is one of the first things to go for budget cuts. And I grew up in a town that in West Hartford, Connecticut, that has a great music program, and had a great music program when I was playing in the 80s and 90s. I played baritone, horn, and trombone, and whatever instrument I wanted to rent was available for me. And you know that screams privilege, to have that. And I'm well aware of how fortunate I was. When I was in high school, I played in a jazz band and got into improvisation, which kind of was a gateway into Phish, and jam bands. And it's just stuff that I had access to, and to be able to do anything to try and give money to schools. We'll get articles in newspapers, or we'll have teachers sending pictures of students with the instruments, or opening up whatever they're getting, the boxes, whatever, to see instruments in there, and just having a chance to possibly make a difference in somebody's life. You can't do everything, I get it, but any little bit helps. And I'm blessed to work for a company that matches any donation I make over $30 at 200%. And so I've been joking throughout the summer about how Phish is bankrupting me. Because we for Mockingbird, we do a Good Karma Pledge drive, and it's not too late to jump in on that. You can send me a direct message on Blue Sky if you're interested. I am Bizarchive, Bizarchive, on there. And so for me, like I've done $20 for every 20-minute jam, and then $30 if it's gone 30, and 40 if it's come close to 40, whatever. And so I'm usually on the hook for $450, $500 every summer from this. And all of a sudden I'm looking at $1,500 being donated. So 500 from me, 1,000 from my job, or something that's $500 or whatever. And grants could be a couple of $1,000, maybe it's $5,000. It depends what the schools are asking for. And so I've been part of Mockingbird. I've been on the board for several years, and I'm involved in marketing for Blue Sky. And we have a team. So Allison does the Facebook and Instagram. And Alice helps out as well. Alice Goddard, Allison Kleiman. And so, it takes a village. It takes a village to run Mockingbird. It takes a village of supporters in the community to make sure we're getting money raised. We wouldn't be able to do this without the donations we're getting, and the fundraising that we do. And all the Phish Network I do is tied into Mockingbird as well. Fishnet's, and the Mockingbird Foundation are intertwined. Fishnet is part of the Mockingbird Foundation. When you get down to the nitty gritty there. So it's something that's been a absolute joy of my life for working on that sales file for 17 years. And, to be able to give back a little bit to the community that's been so gracious to me over the years, with recordings and whatnot, to be able to do that. And it all kind of interlocks together there with donations and supporting one another, both in the community and outside the community with the schools. And so it's just a blessing.
Well, thank you, everyone. Check out the Mockingbird Foundation. Donate if you can, whether you're doing it just of your own volition or matching Scott's contributions. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time after a very long week, I'm sure, and a long weekend. I don't even know what day it is. Yeah, a long weekend coming up.
Thursday, I think.
Yeah, I think. And 2 more shows coming up at Fenway Park. Have the best time. I hope they saved some good stuff for you. I'm sure they did. So enjoy that. And thank you again for taking the time out to recap the Phish in 5 at Madison Square Garden this past week.
Brian, thank you for having me on. Attendance Bias is always a pleasure getting a chance to talk to you, and just to really sink our teeth into these last shows while it's still fresh on our mind. It's really going to be fresh on our minds for many, many months to come.
I think so too. Have a good night. Thank you. And that's it for today's recap for the Phish in 5 Madison Square Garden run for the summer 2026 tour. If you couldn't tell, both Scott and I are pretty zonked out. We're pretty tired, but we both had a lot to say. And even if all of the facts and all of the information didn't come through exactly right, if we were a little woozy and zonked out, I hope that the passion and the love for the band and this run came through, because, man, that is as thick as steel. So we hope you enjoyed it. Again, you can always go to the Mockingbird Foundation and donate. You can always go to phish.net. As far as attendance bias goes, the next episode will be about halfway through August. It will be a preview of Dick's, and then right after Dick's, we will resume regular episodes once the fall rolls around. So, whether or not you attended the Phish and 5 run at MSG, I hope you've had a great summer tour. If you're going to Dick's, safe travels. If you're going to Fenway Park, safe travels. Have a great time and a great rest of your summer. Thank you so much for listening. And just one last reminder, you could always go to www.buymeacoffee.com/attendance bias and donate anything you can to keep this podcast going. Thanks again and have a great rest of your summer.